Hello and happy Halloween to everybody. I've done a video like this before. It came out a few years ago, and it is not of great quality. At the time I was using a very bad microphone, and as the time has progressed, I've gotten a very good microphone, as you can tell. I've also gotten a little bit more comfortable with my voice. John, it has been too long, my friend. How are you?
I've been getting crunk on Skelly wine.
Oh, delightful. Keep it in moderation?
No.
Oh. Okay, bud.
You brought your assistant back before me. Fucked up, man.
I mean, well, she's like important. She's my editor.
I'm so much cooler than her. You don't even speak in words. Bleep boop beep. Translate that one, huh? Hey. What are you doing? Stop.
Alright, you two. I need you to play good now, or I'm putting you back in the box. Got it. Good. Anyway, we will be reading 4 all-time classics from the Scary Stories catalog, including 2 ones I've done before, but I want to do them better justice, so we're doing them today. Let's start with... Harold. Harold. When it got hot in the valley, Thomas and Alfred drove their cows up to a cool green pasture in the mountains to graze. Usually they stayed there with the cows for 2 months. Then they brought them down to the village again. The work was easy enough, but oh, it was boring. All day the 2 men tended to their cows, and at night they went back to the tiny hut where they lived. They ate supper and worked in the garden and went to sleep. It was all the same. Then Thomas had an idea that changed everything. "Let's make the doll the size of a man," he said. "It would be fun to make, and we could put it in the garden to scare away the birds." "It should look like Harold," Alfred said. Harold was a farmer they both hated. They made the doll out of old sacks stuffed with straw. They gave it a pointy nose like Harold's and tiny eyes like his. They added dark hair and even a twisted frown. Of course, they also gave it Harold's name. Each morning on their way to pasture, they tied Harold to a pole in the garden to scare away the birds. Each night they brought him inside so that he wouldn't get ruined in the rain. When they were feeling playful, they would talk to him. One of them might say, "How are the vegetables growing today, Harold?" Then the other, making believe he was Harold, would answer in a crazy voice, "Very slowly." Then they'd both laugh, but not Harold. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse at him, even kick or punch him. Sometimes one of them would take the food that they were eating, which they were both sick of, and smear it on the doll's face. "I didn't like that stew, Harold," he would ask. "Well, you better eat it or else." Then the 2 men would howl with laughter. One night, after Thomas wiped Harold's face with food, Harold grunted. "Did you hear that?" Alfred asked. "It was Harold," Thomas said. "I was watching him when it happened." "I can't believe it. How could he grunt?" Alfred asked. "He's just a sack of straw. It's not possible." "Let's throw him in the fire," said Thomas. "And that will be that." "Let's not do anything stupid," Alfred said. "We don't know what's going on. When we move the cows down, we'll leave him behind. For now, let's just keep an eye on him." So they left Harold in the corner of their hut. They didn't talk to him or take him outside anymore. Now and then the doll grunted, but that was all. After a few days, they decided there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe he was a mouse or some insects had gotten inside of Harold and were making those sounds. So Thomas and Alfred went back to their old ways. Each morning they put Harold out into the garden, and each night they brought him back into the hut. When they felt playful, they joked with him. When they felt mean, they treated him badly as ever. Then one night Alfred noticed something that frightened him. "Harold's growling," he said. "I was thinking the same thing," Thomas said. "Maybe it's our imagination," Alfred replied. "We have been up in the mountain for too long." The next morning while they were eating, Harold stood up and walked out of the hut. He climbed onto the roof and trotted back and forth like a horse on its hind legs. All all day and night he trotted like that. In the morning, Harold climbed down and stood far in the corner of the pasture. The men had no idea what he'd do next. They were afraid. They decided to take the cows down to the valley that same day. When they left, Harold was nowhere in sight. They felt as if they had escaped a great danger and began joking and singing. But then they had gone only a mile or two. Then they realized they had forgotten to bring the milking stools. Neither one of them wanted to go back for them, but the stools would cost a lot to replace. There really is nothing to be afraid of, they told another. After all, what could a doll do? They drew straws to see which one would go back. It was Thomas. I'll catch up to you, he said, and Alfred walked towards the valley. When Alfred came to rise in a path, he looked back for Thomas. He did not see him anywhere, but what he did see was Harold the doll up on the roof again. As Alfred watched, Harold kneeled and stretched out a bloody skin to dry in the sun. High beams. The girl driving an old blue sedan was a senior at the high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away, and she used the car to drive back and forth. She'd driven into town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she pulled away from the school, she noticed a red pickup truck following her out of the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. I guess we're going in the same direction, she thought. She began to watch the truck in her mirror. When she changed her speed, the driver of the truck changed his speed. When she passed the car, so did he. Then he turned on the high beams, flooding her car with light. He left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to pass me, she thought, but she was becoming uneasy. Usually she drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way. But when she turned onto the road, so did the truck. I've got to get away from him, she thought. She began to drive faster. Then he turned on his high beams again. After a minute, he turned them off, and then on again, and then off again. She drove even faster, but the truck stayed right behind her. Then he turned his high beams on again. Once more, her car was ablaze with light. What is he doing? She wondered. What does he want? Then he turned them off again. But then a minute later, he had them on again, and he left them on. At last she pulled into her driveway and the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped out of the front car and ran to her house. Call the police! She screamed at her father. Out in the driveway, she could see the driver of the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they started to arrest him, but he pointed at the girl's car. You don't want me, he said. You want him. Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. As the driver of the truck explained, the man slipped into the girl's car just before she left the school. He saw it happen, but there was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her, so he followed the car. Each time the man in the back seat reached up to overpower her, the driver of the truck turned on his high beams. The man dropped down, afraid that someone might see him. The babysitter. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. Everybody was sitting on the couch in front of the TV. There was Richard, Brian, Jenny, and Doreen, the babysitter. The telephone rang. Maybe it's your mother, said Doreen. She picked up the phone, but before she could say a word, a man laughed hysterically to himself and hung up. Who was it? Asked Richard. Some nut, said Doreen. What did I miss? At 9:30, the telephone rang again. Doreen answered it, and it was the man who had called before. I'll be there soon, he said. He left, and then hung up. Who was it? The children asked. Some crazy person, she said. About 10 o'clock, the phone rang again. Jenny got to it first. Hello? She said. It was the same man. 1 more hour. He laughed and hung up. He said 1 more hour. What did he mean? Asked Jenny. Don't worry, said Doreen. It's someone fooling around. I'm scared, said Jenny. About 10:30, the phone rang once more. When Doreen picked up the phone, the man said, Pretty soon now. And he left.
Why are you doing this?
Dorian asked, and then he hung up.
Was it that guy again?
Asked Brian.
Yes.
Said Dorian. I'm gonna call the operator and complain. The operator told her to call her back if it ever happened again, and she would trace the call. At 11 o'clock, the phone rang and Dorian answered it. Very soon now, the man said, and he left. And hung up. Dorian called the operator. Almost at once, she called back.
Ma'am, that person's calling from the telephone upstairs,
She said.
You better leave. I'll get the police.
Just then a door upstairs opened. A man they'd never seen before started down the stairs towards them. As they ran from the house, he was smiling in a very strange way. A few minutes later, the police found him there and arrested him. Well, that's all we have for today. You know, I was thinking of ending this with a ghost story of my own. Is that something you'd be interested in? I'm delighted to hear. Let me tell you about something that happened to me the other day. For the record, I have always lived in the woods. Even when I moved around, the place I live is heavily wooded, and I usually tend to live in the outskirts of everything. There's a lot of legends and rumors about being out in the woods late at night, but sometimes I like to go on walks when my head's a little bit too clouded. I was walking down one of the old dirt roads in my town late at night, when I heard a whisper.
Hey.
I turned to look where it came from, but there was nobody. I stood underneath the streetlight. I couldn't see anything around me. It was pitch black, but I could almost swear I wasn't alone.